subject because we're talking about God. A lot of people nowadays are coming to the consciousness, like, I don't believe in God, I'm an atheist. But they're forgetting that the Bible is still needs to be cross-analyzed because it has some type of substance to it, right? Because when we talk about the Bible, we're talking about a book that has been literally, like, moving through culture and culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Babylonian culture, Egyptian culture, to this modern day culture that we have to this day. The reality of the biblical God. What is the reality of the biblical God? The etymology of God, it goes back to the thing of Gu, to call or invoke, or to pour libation. So right now, when we talk about the Germanic root of God, we're talking about a ritual act. That's just an act. So that don't give us the real essence of who this being really is. Now let's go to Hebrew. Whenever you read in your Bible, right, and you say God or Lord in the English translation, you don't really get a true essence of what that really means. So in the Hebrew language, when you say God, you're saying Elohim. And that's plural for more than one, right? Like, let us go down there and create men in our image and after our likeness. So when you talk about Lord, Lord is singular. Lord is like saying Allah in the Arabic or in the Quran. And God is like saying Rab. So right now, we have a Lord or Yahweh, which is one, and an Elohim, which is plural for more than one. So example, Deuteronomy 10:17. For the Lord Yahweh, your God, is a God of gods and Lord of lords, plural. The Bible God's genealogy, right? We're going to go to Luke 3:23-38. When we talk about the Bible, people are always saying the Bible is 6,000 years old. Where do they get that idea from? Because in the Bible, you can trace that back. Right now, you see that, according to Jewish records, Adam was made in the year 3761 BCE, according to the Jewish records, right? So according to their records, that's how old he is. But they got that through scholars cross-analyzing the Bible through ages. So this is really important because we're talking about the genealogy of the Hebrew Israelites, or from Adam to Jesus Christ, or Imam Isa with the Muslims. So that scripture is Luke 3:23-38. So they give a timeline from Adam all the way to Jesus, right? So at that time in the Bible, it goes, Adam lived 100 and so years and then he passed. And then he transitioned. Or so-and-so Moses lived a certain amount of time and he transitioned. At that point, we're dealing with a timeline. So when biblical scholars go into the Bible, that's how they came out with a date of 6,000 years old. Okay, the Bible, God's nature. Exodus 34:14. For I, the Lord, thy God, is a jealous God. At that point, you're dealing with a human emotion, right? You're dealing with, if you see somebody with a girl you like, you might get jealous. Right? That's a human emotion. So we know that God has a human emotion. He can get jealous. Alright. Does God walk with man? Yes. Exodus 34:5. The Lord Yahweh descended from the clouds and stood with Moses. So if you're a religious person, you have to stand back at this point and say, wait, God is descending from a cloud. Now he's on earth, right? He's standing on the mountain speaking to Moses. So at that point, you know that God has a physical body because he's able to come down, descend from the clouds, and walk on this material realm. Okay, the identification of God, right? Like, who exactly is this being? When we go to Exodus 1-4, we get an identification of God. We get who he really is. And it goes, and God spake unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, by the name God Almighty, but by the name Yahweh was I not known to them. So at that point, this is in Babylon, right? When he came to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, his name wasn't Yahweh. That's the name that this deity adopted. Back then, his name was God Almighty, right? But it sounds weird when you say God Almighty, right? So in Hebrew, God Almighty is really El Shaddai. So now when we go to the Hebrew Strong Dictionary, or the Hebrew Strong Concordance of the Bible, we get who this being really is. So God Almighty translated in Hebrew to El Shaddai. Shaddai, Hebrew Strong 7703. Its definition is destroy, to deal violently, despoil, devastate, ruin, oppress, rob, waste. Come on now, what's going on here? All right, so, and that goes back to Shad, which is 7700, which means demon, to Shawad, which means Dorman or devil. Deuteronomy 32:17. The people sacrifice their sons and daughters to devils, right? That's in the Bible. That's in the same translation, God Almighty. So we're going to go to the Akkadian. That's what this word comes back to, because as you know, Abraham comes from Samaria or Ur. So in Akkadian, Shaddai or Shadu means mountain dweller. And as I read to you guys earlier, it said God descended upon a mountain. Whenever you see people come in contact with this God, you see them going up to a mountain, right? And when you go to the definition in the Hebrew Strong's, you see that this being, his definition of his name means a devil or a destroyer or to desolate or a demon. And it goes back to a mountain dweller. So who are we really talking about? Okay, so God has 46 chromosomes. Why do I say that? Genesis 6:1-4. The sons of God slept with the daughters of men. Can we read that? Genesis 6:1-4.
And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. And they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years.
Okay, so let's analyze the scripture. We're talking about beings coming down. The sons of God came down and had sex with the daughters of men. So in order to have a child, we need 23 chromosomes from the male and 23 chromosomes from the woman. At that point, that's the exchange of chromosomes. So if the children of God are coming down and having sex with the daughters of men, that means they're genetically compatible, right? So if his sons have 46 chromosomes, that means that God also has 46 chromosomes, right? So at this point, we're talking about a physical being. This is clear to see. The Anunnaki depicted in the Bible, Revelations 19:16-18. So in the Bible, we get a depiction or explanation of what these beings look like. The reason why I say Anunnaki is because whenever you talk about let us go down with the Elohim, that's an act. Anunnaki means the beings who ascended from heaven or from Anu to Ki. Ki means earth, or G, or Geo, or Gia. That means earth.
He hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great.
Okay, so now in the Bible, we're talking about these beings coming down and eating the flesh of men, the flesh of kings, right? What's really going on? So we have a being with wings, right? Coming down. So this is Samaria. It shows actual men with wings, right? And that comes from an older depiction. This is what we call the Anunnaki. This is the even older picture where you have some type of being with wings in a face of a bird. And Revelations, when they talk about these deities, they talk about these deities or these beings having a face of a bird or a face of a lion. This is where they get that depiction from. Samaria or Mesopotamia. Okay, so these beings, these are what we call the reptilians, right? And almost every ancient culture has a depiction of these beings and an explanation of who these beings are, right? They even have a television show on TV. What is it called? Ancient Aliens? If you watch Ancient Aliens, raise your hand. Anybody watch Ancient Aliens in here? Boom, boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? So right now, they actually let you know what's going on. So this is Ecuador, and this is Mesopotamia. Two different spots with the same depiction. Okay, here's another depiction on walls from the Dogons of reptilian beings. And as you guys can see, I don't know if you guys know what a gray is, but that's a gray. That's a small, cute, big-headed alien little thingy that's always on the cinemas. That's all the way in the right corner. These are Dogon people. Remember, the Dogon, they was able to map out the whole star system. with none of the technology that we have to this day, right? So we're going to go to the next slide. Actually, go back one. All right. When you talk about the Dogons, right, it's really weird because they actually tell you in their script or in their doctrine or in their culture that they had beings come to them called the Namus. Look this up, don't believe me. The Namus is a reptilian being that came from the Sirius Star constellation that actually lived within our oceans or our seas, right? And they said that they will come out and visit them and give them knowledge of the cosmos, right? And that's the Dogons breakdown of these beings that we see in our Bible. Okay, now we're talking about a savior complex. Right here you have before, after, and way after. At this point, you see in Kemet, where you have the Immaculate Conception or the Divine Mother with Heru. Then you have what we have over here, which is like more of like Rome, right? And then you have the modern day Caucasian, which is the Catholic Church, right? With the same symbolism coming out of Africa, right? Every race had their own savior complex. Go to the next one. Okay, now we see the same being, this reptilian being, doing the same act, right? And we're like, yo, we have human depictions of a mother feeding her child, right? And now when we go into Samaria, we have what you call the Anunnaki or the reptilians doing the same act. Are these beings really real? Is the Bible really showing us something? Go to the next slide. Okay, again, another 3 depictions of the same being, 3 different statues of the same being. Reptilian mother, or let's say, as the Bible will say, that great serpent who deceived Eve, right? In the Bible, you have a talking serpent, right? Here, we have a depiction in Samaria of a reptilian mother feeding her child. We'll go to the next one. Okay, now, let's take a step back and go into Islam. Okay, pre-Islamic Allah, right? Because the Muslims, they think they say, you know, everyone's attacking the Bible, but, you know, no one's really cross-analyzing the Quran, you know, and this needs to happen. Because what were, let's say, the people from Iraq, which I would call East Indians, before Islam? All right, so let me see if I can read this. All right, pre-Islamic Allah. Hubble was a god worshipped in pre-Islamic Arabia, notably at the Kaaba in Mecca. His idol was a human figure believed to control acts of deviation, which was in the form of tossing arrows before a statue. The direction in which the arrows pointed answered questions asked of the idol. The origins of the code of Hubble are uncertain, but the name is found in inscriptions from Nabata in northern Arabia, across the territory of modern Syria and Iraq. The specific powers and identity attributed to Hubble are equally unclear. Access to the idol was controlled by the Quraysh tribe. Now, as anybody who's a Muslim knows, Muhammad is from the Quraysh tribe. The God's devotees fought against the followers of Islam, Islamic prophet Muhammad, during the Battle of Badr in 1624 CE. After Muhammad entered Mecca in 630 CE, he removed the statue of Hubble from the Kaaba, along with the idols of all the other pagan gods. So, Allah, the God of Islam, right, was basically Hubble, a moon god, a moon deity. We're going to go to the next slide. And this is the depiction of Hubble. This is his ancient statue. Okay, and it says here, Islam is nothing more than a revival of the ancient moon god Hubble. One more. Okay, when we see the crescent moon on top of our mosque, what does that really mean? See, the crescent moon goes back to moon worship, right? And this goes back to or Samaria. Just like how I was telling you guys in the Bible that Abraham is from Samaria, of right now, when we talk about Hubble, this moon worship, that goes back to Samaria. This is all going back to Samaria. The moon god rode on a winged bull, and his symbol was the crescent and tripod. So that's your crescent moon on top of your mosque. Muslim will never explain that to you. Next. Okay, the Dogons in Mali. See, when we were talking about the Anunnaki beings, these beings are actually from the Sirius star constellation, or Orion. Okay, the Dogon people of Mali and West Africa preserves the tradition of contact with intelligent extraterrestrial beings from the Sirius star system. And this is something that they say, this is something that's written down in their culture. Next slide. Okay, whenever you see Africans, or ancient Africans, dressed up, or whenever you see, let's say you go to a parade, you see a tall man, people depicted giants, they're actually mimicking their ancestors. Because when you talk about these gods, these gods were tall. They're like 9 to 12 feet tall. They're like 9 to 12 feet tall. So these people are mimicking or trying to depict their ancestors. Next. Okay, right now, when we talk about reptilian beings, you see some tribes in Africa that actually sharpen their teeth or get certain scars on their body so they can look like their ancestors. Not their ancestors, but they look like these reptilian beings that used to come and visit them and actually made it. As fundamental forces come into being and interact, finally reaching the level of elemental matter, to atoms, to cells, to organisms, to bodies, right? And that's in Africa, that's in Egypt on the pyramid. We have our own depiction of what they try to call the Big Bang. But ours has a spiritual connotation to it. Okay, and this is the Una's pyramid, right? This is the picture of it. If you see, I know you can't really see it because it's not too clear, the very top of the wall have stars, right? You know, it's all depicted with Miseducation, and it tells a whole story of the Big Bang. That's where they got it from. You have the Bimban stone, right? What is the Bimban stone? The Bimban stone basically is what we will call like a meteorite that came to this realm, right? Okay. In ancient Egypt, Anu or Heliopolis, the mythological account of the mysterious Bimban stone first appeared during the Tepi, or the point of first creation, as a mound after the water of creation called Noon has subsided. The Bimban stone has also been described as a conical and pyramidal shaped object based upon ancient witnesses' reports, and modern scholars believe it could have been a black meteorite. The Bimban stone was said to represent the cosmic seed of life produced from the sperm of Atum, the supreme God. It has been polished smooth over the years by the hands of Islamic pilgrims. Traditions hold that it fell from the heavens. Comets hold much of the original ingredients of the recipe that created plants and brought plentiful water. Panspermia, it basically, that's life coming to Earth from the cosmos, right? From the stars. The picture I showed you with the Bimban stone, it was actually in the Kaaba, and Islamic pilgrims, they actually touch it and try to kiss it every time they go. What's so religious about kissing a meteorite, right? So what us Africans knew and Egyptians actually documented was that Bimban stone, or those Bimban stones, actually came from the cosmos into our atmosphere, carrying DNA, right, into our waters, which helped, it gave the prerequisites of the creation of life. That's how the African pygmies came here. The first beings on this planet, genetically, was the African pygmies. Right? Yeah, so when you talk about panspermia, that's life coming from beyond the stars to this planet. When we talk about the big bangs and that process, that's what goes on. We have life moving throughout the universe or the solar system, and actually came to this planet and gave us our first sense of evolution, right? Which you will see the African pygmies. Remember, at one point, the original beings on this planet were small beings, no taller than 3 to 4 feet tall. What am I? I'm a Nawapi, right? What is Nawapi? You know what I'm saying? What is Nupu? Nupu is the mental resurrector, able to break the spell of those triads of the Adamite religions, used over 4,000 years to separate you from your divine self. Nupu breaks the spell of ignorance with actual facts. What is present and future? Your fate, not belief. Wunuwa is the science of sound right reasoning. It is our animism. We are a soul species. Soul is our emotional being, right? So we were animists, right? What do animism mean? Go to the next slide. Animism. Everyone really pay attention, because when we talk about what were African people prior to European colonization and European religions, right? Animism is Latin for anima, which means breath or spirit or life. Is the world view that non-human entities such as animals, plants, and inanimate objects possess a spiritual essence. Animism is used in the anthropology of religion as a term for the belief system of some indigenous tribal peoples, especially prior to the development of organized religion. Although each culture has its own different mythologies and rituals, animism is said to describe the most common fundamental thread of indigenous people. The most common fundamental thread of indigenous people, spiritual or supernatural perspectives. So most African people, Indian people, Australian people, all were animists. And then tell me from this definition, the animistic perspective is so fundamental and mundane every day and taken for granted, the most animistic indigenous people do not even have a word in their language that corresponds to animism. So we didn't have a word for religion, and we didn't have a word for animism. It was just so natural to us. You get what I'm saying? Animism was so natural. Animism is to know, if you guys didn't get, when I read that, it's the fact that God energy that we talk about, it manifests through every aspect of nature, right? So there's not just this one man in the sky talking to us or always watching us. That's the creative force of will that manifests within nature. And that's why we say, I am God or you are God. Not because we're a God of everything, not because we're egotistic, it's because we're all a part of nature. Actually, in Kemet, the word for God was neter, which means nature, right? Which the English word nature is a derivative of the Egyptian word neter. Okay, animism. The attribution of the soul to plants, inanimate objects, and natural phenomena, the belief in the supernatural power that organizes and animates the material universe. So basically the spirit connotation behind nature. Ancestral worship. What is that really? When we talk about ancestral worship, it's really important for us to understand this. Because the only way we can have ancestral worship is if we mess with genetics, right? So, as an Nawapian, we have a tablet called the genetic kiss, right? And basically it explains, when you kiss somebody, you're literally transferring fundamental DNA or information, ancestral information to that person. Because each one of us, we carry we have 30 ancestors that's most predominant in our genetics to this day. So that's something that's fundamental to understand. When I kiss somebody, right, I'm actually exchanging my genetics or my DNA in that person, and that person is digesting that. Okay? So what does that even mean? Right? If you was to exchange sexual fluids and you have an STD, you exchange an STD to that person, that's information, that's a virus. So on a more minute level, when you kiss somebody, you're exchanging ancestral DNA. And at that point, you become more connected, right? And that's how sex becomes more spiritual. It's because you're exchanging yourself, you know? Because, you know, our genetics is powered by our etheric body, right? Or they'll call it spiritual body, but we call it an etheric body. We're actually exchanging that energy to our mate. Now when Caucasians say they come from apes, I mean, I couldn't agree with them more, right? Ape-man evolution. This is the ancestral roots of the ape-man who came from the Homo genos to Homo erectus to Homo sapien, from the crossbreeding done by extraterrestrials that made them for their own use. So when I talk about the African pygmies, they predate the Adam story. When we talk about God creating man in his image, the Bible shows you that that's only 6,000 years old. That has nothing to do with Africans. Remember, Africans been on this planet for millions upon millions upon millions of years. They're finding bones in Kenya that's 9 million years old. In Ethiopia. Look at Lucy. Remember I said the first people on this planet was pygmies? Lucy was actually an African pygmy that they found. How old is Lucy again, Barry? How old is Lucy again?
Like 4 million years old.
4 million years old, right? And then it goes further back in Kenya to 9 million years old. And the Caucasian people are telling us that they're only 6,000 years old. At least the religious people. Tan hair, the black hair. If you look at black people, we only have, it's kind of general for a certain particular type of hair. Our genetics with the Caucasian man, right? So they came down here with a project, right? And I'm sorry, this particular Caucasian man, because they're two different type of Caucasian people. These Caucasian people, they were mixed with the monkeys, right? With the chimpanzee, the orangutan, and the gabon, right? And that creates different types of Caucasian people, which have the Celtics, the Vikings. What's the other one? The Celtics, the Vikings, the Celtics, and the Celtics, right? Those are 3 different types of Caucasian people, right? And that's the Palladian people breeding a particular type of man. And you have another Caucasian, evolution. What's your name? Is this a white person? Yes or no?
Africa.
Yes. Can I get an answer? Yeah. Yes. Is that a white person?
Yeah. Let's go.
That's a Caucasian?
Yeah.
No, that's not a Caucasian. Right there, that's an albino Indian. This is an Indian, right, that has a genetic defect that we call albinism. Right? In the Bible, they call it the curse of leprosy. Right? Alright, this is the Aryan race, which basically equals Iranian. The white people descended from the albino East Indian. This is a particular type of Caucasian people, not all white people. Alright, again, these are albino Indians. These are not white people, right? As you can see, the one all the way to the far right bottom, she has a big nose. She has the full lips, right? That's still, you still get the Indian, but then they're albino, so they look white. You see, she has blue eyes, blonde hair. If I was walking down the street, I'd be bugged out. I'd be like, whoa, is that a white girl? Like, you know what I'm saying? You get the big nose, big lips, but at the same time, she's cursed with leprosy, or she's cursed with albinism. All right, we're gonna go back to the Bible because we still have to analyze who this being is, right?